Concepts in a Teacup by HS Consultancy, presented by Harry Sewell. Selective Perception. One of the things that I'd like to do in this series, Concepts in a Teacup, is to get a bit more beneath the surface to understand how we process the world and to recognize that the biases, the forms of discrimination are often about the lack of critical thinking that we apply to our lives and perhaps to our professional roles. Fisk and Taylor in 1991 spoke about selective perception as that kind of process by which we allow some data to kind of enter into our awareness and others we automatically screen out, and that will be shaped by our prior experiences of life. It will be shaped by the circles within which we move, and it means that, as James O'Brien stated in his book How Not to Be Wrong, that we might see the same thing, but depending on who does it and the context to it, then we see something completely different. James O'Brien uses that example of the football match. He said if you're in a stadium and you've got spectators that are watching a game, if a player who's on the team that they support does something and the ref blows the whistle, they might shout at the ref that he's being unfair, unjust, whereas if a player on the opponent team does something similar or exactly the same thing, they're more likely to say, yeah, ref, that was a good call. And literally, they believe that they're seeing something different. It's not as though people consciously are aware that they're trying to bend the rules for them to go in their favor. They literally see the same thing and experience it as different. And it's kind of very important for us to understand that this is kind of part of our human nature, that our brains can only process so much information at a time, so we're forever screening out what might be seen as extraneous information so that our minds can focus on the bits that we think are relevant to us or important to us. Now, how does that apply to the kind of work that I do, where I'm kind of trying to support critical thinking? I think if we believe that we're seeing the world through a neutral lens, then it's to misunderstand the way in which our minds operate. And we can fall into the trap of believing that we are seeing the world accurately and that anyone who perceives the world differently is seeing it incorrectly. One of the things that really helps is to bring to the front of our mind that awareness that, well, the way in which we're perceiving the world is shaped by our experiences, shaped by what we've read, what we've consumed, and that maybe there are some kind of biases inbuilt into that. And that if we want to really move towards a fair and just world, what we need to do is to be curious about what it is we're not seeing. In his work, The 4 Levels of Listening, Otto Scharmer talks about that stage where we listen for disconfirming information. It's a key step in our process of developing our critical thinking, where we have that ability to say, I'm pretty convinced I know what's going on here. I can see the world in the way that makes sense to me. But let me just be curious about an alternative perception. What is it that I'm not yet seeing? And that's kind of the premise behind James O'Brien's book. The thing that most helps us is to not cling to certainty, but to be prepared, to be curious and open to alternative possibilities. Now, what makes this line of argument really important is that it doesn't appeal just to one side of an argument or a debate. It's recognizing that whether you're on the left or on the right, whether you consider yourself to be woke or anti-woke, wherever we are, that it's inviting us into that desire to be a bit more curious so that we can kind of at least not be as wrong so often.